Hello, I'm Dr. Chuck Stowe. Thanks so much for tuning in for the third part of the overview on Legal Environment BA 251. What we're going to do in this brief presentation is sort of describe to you what content this course contains, in other words, from the legal content. The emphasis of this course is on the so what. I believe, and there are scientific studies that verify this, that when people understand why something's important, the brain automatically allocates that information for permanent storage and permanent use. When we really try to memorize something that we don't understand or don't see the value of, we don't do well with it. So I want to present to you the so what topics. For example, part 1 of the course that takes us through the first exam deals with these issues. Take a look at these issues. Do any of them interest you about the legal process? Surely there must be one of these bullet points that would interest you. And hopefully I'll persuade you that each one is important. Now, what are we going to cover in terms of topics from the book? Here they are. These are the sort of topics or chapters that we're going to be covering in the first part of the course. After the first exam, we're going to look at some so what topics for part 2. Business decisions can subject one to criminal prosecution, civil litigation, loss of reputation. What should small business know about doing international transactions? The internet. Do you realize that when you run a business off the internet, you're subjecting yourself to litigation all over the world unless you take certain steps? And there are lots of other very practical so what kind of topics that could affect you in your first job or even currently. The chapters we're going to cover in the second exams: criminal law, international law, and intellectual property and internet law. But it's important to understand what the value of these topics are for you and your career. All right? For the third exam, here's some so what topics. Now, one of the things we'll pick up is that litigation, you'll never become wholly compensated. Just doesn't work that way. We'll also learn when you need a writing. We'll learn how people become billionaires when they come to this country with virtually no assets. That's all in the strategy of picking the right legal forum and knowing how to raise capital. All right, what topics do these relate to? What chapters do those issues relate to? Here they are. Those are the chapters that we'll cover for our third exam. Now, next exam, part 4, if you will, is about how human resources, how human resource laws have become federalized. How do we reduce wasteful HR-type litigation expenses? How can you get your rights fulfilled by an employer without having to go to the headache of ruining your career by trying to sue your boss? There's some good strategies in this section. We'll talk about marketing law, antitrust law, and we'll explode some of the myths of the robber barons. Do any of these things interest you? Now, there'll be other so whats that I will cover every time I take a new topic. These are the chapters that we will cover prior to the final exam. Now, the final exam will include this segment, but it's also comprehensive. Don't panic. I have a strategy that I'll announce in class as to how we prepare for the final exam. But we don't use study guides. We use the textbook, we use our notes, because the notes are covering all of the questions on the quizzes, and the quizzes build the test bank for the exams. So you'll get to see questions not exactly the same, but very close to the same as we go forward in the course. Now, the bad news is we got a lot of material to cover. I have to cover this material because of AACSB. This course is transferable to Duke and to Harvard and to Stanford and to USC and to all the other AACSB schools. So I'm required to cover a certain amount of material. The other thing that makes this course difficult is the transactions themselves. I mean, how many of you started businesses? Some of you maybe have, but some of this material covers transactions you're not familiar with. The other thing is that because of the testing I use, it's not memorization. Last minute cramming, you're going to have trouble with the course. You've got to take this in small bites. It's unfamiliar and new material. And the way I test the questions, the way they're phrased and whatnot, you can't just guess or think you're going to recognize. So we've got to work together to develop good notes and to have a clear understanding of what is covered, what's important in this course. I don't test over fluff puff. I test over very, very basic core material. I do not allow you to print quizzes in order to memorize answers. That's just juvenile. It's high schoolish. Instead, I want to build a binder that you will use in the future, that you will know where to go to look up and find the legal aspects for your decision making. Now, here's the good news. The good news is I've structured the course for your success. We start with the learning productivity things, the time management, the note-taking, and the reading strategies. The other good news, we're going to use class time for learning time. When you walk out of the classroom, you're going to say to yourself, wow, I learned this and this and this and this today. Once your brain has it, it's there, because your brain will be told why something is important and how to actually use it. Man, this is practical. The other thing that's sort of good news is that I wrote all the test questions. I wrote all the quiz questions. These are not publisher printed out stuff. All of this I've written, and I'm the one giving the lectures. So I'm directing your attention to those issues that are important. Now, you're going to have to do some reading, and that's the reason for the quiz thing. Now, here's the thing. When you finish this course, you're not only going to have some things up here, you're going to have a tangible outcome to the course. That binder is going to be valuable to you. That's the good news. This is going to be one of your, I hope, one of your most interesting, admittedly challenging, but most valuable courses on your plan. Well, thank you very much for taking the course. By the way, the fellow on the left is my son Charlie, and believe it or not, I'm a volunteer in the South Carolina Guard. Anyway, thanks again for taking the course, watching this video.